Hello, and welcome to a video where I explain the basics of how to build characters in Genshin Impact in the most brain-rot simplest way I can, because I feel like this is the kind of video that I personally would have really appreciated when I started the game. And also, this time, unlike my last times creating videos, someone has actually asked me for it. Thank you so much for the suggestions, by the way. Just a heads up though, I'm not like a top 1% meta player, so I won't be able to explain in depth about the super advanced stuff, but this will hopefully be a solid basic building block for understanding the game mechanics. So the basic gist of Genshin is that you're combining together different types of nature elements to deal damage. The 7 elements we have so far are wind, rock, electricity, plant, water, fire, and ice. When 2 or sometimes 3 of these elements mix together, they create a reaction that deals damage. Most of these reactions are pretty self-explanatory, like if water meets ice, it freezes, if ice meets fire, it melts, and so on. On the other hand, there are some elements that won't create any reactions when mixed, like if plant meets ice. By mixing elements like this, you're able to deal damage, called elemental reaction damage, and also you're able to break certain elemental shields on enemies by manipulating these reactions to your advantage. So far, each character can only wield one element, so putting a team together with the elements you want to manipulate is pretty much the core of the game. Just like there are elements, there are also these things called stats, which I've also seen them called as attributes. These are the things that you can see when you click on your character details. The main ones are HP, short for hit points, which is basically your character's blood. How many times can your characters get bonked before they lose all their blood and die? Attack, which is usually just how hard your individual characters are able to bonk enemies. Defense, which you can basically think of to be how thick your character's skin is, so the same bonk would be less lethal for someone with more defense stacked. EM, short for Elemental Mastery, which usually is how much your elemental reactions will bonk for. Energy Recharge, which is how much energy the character is able to absorb, and in turn, how frequently the character is able to do their special burst. And finally, there's Crit Rate and Crit Damage. These go together as a pair. The damage part is basically a percentage that shows how much extra bonk damage your characters will be doing, while the rate part is the percent chance that your character will be doing that bonus bonk damage. Each character has their own set of stats that make them stronger, and usually you can find what stats are best for a character by clicking on their talents and seeing what they multiply from. So let's take Albedo as an example. If we click on his talent, we see that his skill scales off of defense, meaning that defense is what makes his skill do bigger bonk damage. Now you may be thinking it'd be best to just stack defense on defense on defense on Albedo, but nay, there's more. There's also something called elemental damage. There's one of each type of element so far, plus physical damage, which is the white damage number that indicates how much your characters are able to bonk without the help from their element. So elemental damage, as the name suggests, is just how big the bonk of that element will be. So going back to the Albedo example, it may actually be more beneficial to stack some geo damage alongside defense for him. Now let's talk about the building part, starting with the weapons. Each character can wield one type of weapon, and as of current, there are 5 types of weapons. A sword, a bigger sword, a bow, basically just magic, and a spear. Each weapon is able to do physical damage if they wanted to, except for catalysts, who are usually restricted to only doing elemental damage. The individual weapons themselves come with 2 stats for us to work with. The first is a base set amount of attack. Some may come with a lot, while others not so much. The second stat is, surprise surprise, another stat. The second stat is a great way to get extra of a stat that your character needs, so I definitely recommend not neglecting this too much. Yeah, I know that the bell is a beautiful claymore, but it's also true that HP percent is not a stat that is very important to many claymore characters right now. But I'm definitely not one to talk, since I'm also an aesthetics over meta type of Genshin player, so if you want to use the bell, there's absolutely nothing stopping you, I promise. The artifacts are a little more complex than the weapons, but honestly, I wouldn't worry about this too much if you're just starting the game. I actually think I didn't even start building artifacts until I was AR 50, and I was still able to beat most of the content until then, so yeah, don't fret it too much. If you're interested or at a level where you'd like to start investing in artifacts, that's cool too. So there are 5 artifacts that you can equip on each character: a flower, a feather, a sands, a goblet, and a circlet. If we're to set 5-star artifacts as a standard here, each artifact comes with 1 main stat and 4 substats. Some artifacts are more, I guess, specialized than others. For example, the flower and feather will only ever come in 1 main stat, HP for the flower and attack for the feather. On the other hand, the other 3 are a little more diverse in their main stats. The sands can come in one of these 5 stats, the circlet can come in one of these 7 stats, and the goblet is the most diverse and can come in one of these 12 stats. One thing to note is that crit, both rate and damage, is a main stat that can only be found on the circlet, and elemental damage is a main stat that can only be found on the goblet. So generally speaking, a lot of main damage dealing characters like to have crit on their circlet and some elemental damage on their goblet, since these are the only artifacts that you can find these main stats on. Now let's go over the hellhole that is artifact substats. So like I mentioned before, each artifact comes with either 3 or 4 substats at level 0. And every time you level up an artifact by 4 levels, one of these substats will also be leveled up. Now, the real annoying part comes when the RNG gods decide that they hate you, and now you're sitting on an artifact that's excellent on paper for your attack scaling character, but then it also rolls into defense 5 times, and this happens over and over and over again for the next year and a half until you finally give up and settle for an okay option. Genshin was really created by a bunch of Nietzsche fans, TBH. Aside from each individual artifact, there are also artifact sets that when you complete one set of, makes your character stronger. Each set has their own special bonuses, so getting an artifact together in a set is usually a great way to maximize your character's potential. You can either get 4 of a kind together to utilize the set's 4-piece bonus, or mix and match sets in pairs to utilize 2 sets' 2-piece bonuses. And finally, let's go over the talents real quick because not all characters need all 3 of their talents leveled up. A very general rule of thumb is that supporting characters, who will rarely take center stage on field, usually don't need normal attack leveled up. Some may not even want their skills leveled up actually. So if ever in doubt, Genshin actually integrated a pretty good talent level up priority interface thing that is a pretty good basis for understanding what talents need leveling up. But of course, if you want to use your supports as main damage dealers, I say you should definitely just go for it instead of following some random girls yapping about what you should and shouldn't do. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to the basics of building your characters. I hope this video served as a good enough fundamentals video on how to make your favorite characters stronger. I know this wasn't anything crazy advanced and technical, but if you guys enjoyed this kind of simplified walkthrough, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be happy to also go over things like team building tips and elemental synergies and just everything that comes after understanding how to build one individual character. But yeah, this is all from me today. Thanks so much for watching until the end. Till next time, bye!